Hey everybody, my name is Matt. You're watching Broke Rednecks Prepping. What today's video about is a response video. We did a popped up video a couple weeks ago. It was about five firearms every prepper should have. And I also did a video about a go bag and included a couple things in that some people took issue with. And I'm going to go kind of in order on them. First thing people complained about was on the go bag. A lot of your preppers thought I was being foolish by recommending people have pepper spray. Well, the reason for this is a couple. One, I hear a lot of preppers talking about all the guns they should have, and it kind of seems like people are in a real hurry to kill somebody. I'm not. And as a police officer, I carried non-lethal weapons. You don't have to shoot everybody that you have to wrestle with to get in handcuffs. And you don't have to shoot anybody every time you get into an altercation. Not everything needs to be escalated that high. I also specifically made a point about the pepper spray being good for animals. Because not everything we have in our get home bag or in our preps are intended to be for a long-term grid down situation. Our purpose is not necessarily to prepare for the zombie apocalypse. It's to prepare for what's likely to happen. Now, I've talked in my videos about having survived hurricanes, microbursts, tornadoes, floods, things like that. One of the things that is very common with that is wildlife coming into areas they wouldn't normally be. Areas are getting flooded, they're coming out of creeks and out of the woods. You also have a lot of, especially after a tornado or a microburst type situation, hurricanes, you have a lot of fences down. So you have a lot of animals, specifically dogs running loose. Some of those dogs bite. If you ever have to find yourself walking home, you're probably going to find yourself in a situation where, especially if you're walking through a rural area, there's going to be some dogs that consider the ditch or side of the road you're walking down to be part of their home. You don't really want to shoot all of them. All those dogs that may growl or scare at you or even snap at you are still somebody's pet. You also need to consider, especially if you're in an urban area, where your bullets are going. A 40-pound dog isn't going to stop a 40 cal. It's not going to stop a rifle round. And you're responsible for that bullet when it leaves. Why risk an accident, a bullet hitting somebody else or hitting somewhere it shouldn't? Or shooting somebody's pet that otherwise is a nice dog, but he's scared, he doesn't know where he is, everything, there's debris everywhere. When, if he is actually a threat to you at that moment, you can just use pepper spray. We talk a lot about situations after disaster. We saw this a little bit with Harvey, but think Katrina, where there was widespread looting, that sort of thing. Yes, lethal force could sometimes be justified, but think of the ramifications of that. If somebody is just trying to prowl around your house because they're looking for food and water, you have to protect yours, obviously, because you have a family. But at the same time, you are dealing with hungry people. And if it's a natural disaster, this isn't a grid down where we've all gone Mad Max. This is some people need something today. We're going to be back to normal in a few days. Why shoot them? If you can help it, a non-lethal force, something like a taser. I like pepper spray because it's light. You can put it on a keychain and carry it just about anywhere. Something like pepper spray allows you to protect your own health, safety, and well-being without having to escalate to a situation where there's no coming back from. So while a lot of people think that carrying 9mm or carrying a pepper spray, a little gel, is probably a sign of weakness, I consider it a sign of strength. We don't have to run to a gun for everything. The other thing some people picked on is why I would count a handgun as something in my get-home bag for a vehicle. And the reason for it is fairly simple. I'm a concealed carry holder. I carry it everywhere. I think everybody should. I know some of the viewers disagree with that, but you know what? I think they should. And it should be included if you're going to leave your vehicle, you don't want to leave a gun in it, take it with you. I mean, just run the risk of it being broken into. Why let a criminal get a free gun when you can carry it with you? Now, I do encourage everybody to do so legally. Get licensed, practice, learn how to use your handgun appropriately. But at the same time, have it. I know when I've had to walk somewhere after natural disaster, specifically in East Texas, seeing alligators come up on the roadway was not unusual. Now, none of them chased me and tried to make me dinner, but if one of them had, that's why you have a handgun. And some people thought that, well, you don't really need a gun if you're just walking home because your vehicle's broke down. Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, you may. You're going to be walking through unfamiliar areas. A lot of areas we drive through commuting to and from work are perfectly fine to drive, but not the safest to walk through. Think about crime statistics in areas. And there's been one thing that has been proven to stop crime anywhere it's tried, and that's armed citizenry. If you doubt me, compare the murder rate in Houston to Chicago. Anyway, if you don't want to carry a gun, you don't have to. But something to think about is having one can be a lifesaver. Also, after a natural disaster, we discussed wildlife coming out, things like that. If you're on foot or around your house, you don't necessarily need to be carrying a rifle or something everywhere. But we have had mountain lions come out of areas and places we live after storms. We've had alligators. We've had other things come loose. Sometimes you're going to have to put one down to protect your area. If you have livestock like we do, well, floods, things like that, tend to flood areas of things that predators would normally hunt. So they come in and go after a horse or a cow or chickens. And unfortunately, you're going to have to put some of them down. Something you can carry around even a couple acre property in case that comes up is just a simple handgun. And it's not too big of an ordeal. Third thing people complained about was why I recommended, as part of the 5 guns every prepper should have, a quote-unquote assault rifle. Now, I never liked the term assault rifle. It was actually a term made up by Adolf Hitler. Not because they had assault rifles, but because the Germans had invented a semi-automatic/automatic rifle that worked okay but wasn't great, but he wanted to scare the Allies, so he came up with a term that loosely translated became assault rifle. And in the 80s, people started calling semi-automatic guns, meaning every time you pull the trigger, a single bullet comes out, assault rifles. And, I don't know, it's just a stupid term. Now, this particular rifle is an M4. It's based on the AR platform. It's got the expandable stock. It's got the red dot sight. It is chambered in .223 caliber. Now, a lot of people fear this because some of them have been used in active shooter situations over the last couple of years. And people think that that's because this rifle in and of itself is particularly dangerous compared to other guns. It always amuses me that people want to ban this type of rifle but not, say, an SKS or the Ruger Mini 14, which functionally is very similar. The reason these guns have been used a lot for illicit purposes is not because the guns themselves are more powerful, they're not. .223 is a relatively small bullet, or because they fire quicker than other similar rifles, they don't. The reason people have used it more is one simple reason. The reason they're so popular. They're easy to use. They're light. They don't weigh much. Somebody with a small frame can maneuver. You can adjust the stock to fit you just right. So a shorter person can crunch it in. A taller person can move it out. And the .223 ammunition, because it's small, is fairly light. That's why it's used. And unfortunately, because we so often don't take time to understand the reasons behind something, we want to ban it. Now, the reason I recommended this particular gun for preppers is, well, it's a multitude of reasons. The first is because it can be used tactically. A rifle like this is semi-automatic. If somebody's shooting at you, you can put some more bullets down range than you would with, say, a bolt-action rifle. It's light. It's easy to carry. Now, if you have a full-size hunting rifle, it's hard to duck behind things. This you can tuck in a little tighter. You can maneuver it better. So it's a little handier. The .223 ammunition, if you're going to be out walking around a lot, is lighter. I mean, we don't think about the weight of ammunition, but if you're going to carry 300 rounds with you, like the Army used to, it gets heavy. You'll notice the difference between .223 and .308. Now, this bullet is big enough that with an accurate shot would kill a deer. But it's also small enough that you could shoot something as a food source. Think a possum or raccoon or something like that if you're in a real pickle, or a turkey, without just blowing it up. The .223 is what the military uses. Now, fun fact, the military switched to the .223 years ago, as opposed to the .30 caliber rifle round they used through World War II in Korea. And it wasn't because it was a better bullet, it was because it was less lethal at the time. They actually wanted to cut back on enemy deaths, on the casualty counts. It was, ironically, they switched to a smaller bullet for humanitarian purposes. Now, the Army recently, Secretary of the Army wants to switch to a larger bullet, a 7.62 30 caliber-ish round, because the .223 isn't killing enough jihadis in the Middle East. They're getting hit and living. And, well, if you're going to shoot at a jihadist, I mean, you want to kill them. That's the best thing to do with them. Anyway, this particular rifle, from a prepper standpoint, it's light, it's compact. Compared to other rifles, it's fairly concealable. You can slip it on a sling over your shoulder, especially if you want to go around the back, and still put a backpack on over it, and probably not have this gun show on a profile from long distance. However, it is accurate and lethal out to about 400 yards, or so the Army says. I wouldn't go much over 2 with it. That's just me. The 223 antler was also incredibly common. In a grid down situation, you'd be able to barter for it relatively easy. In just a normal, I want to practice with it and go shoot my M4, my AR, or whatever, because, well, I like going pew pew pew. Well, the ammo is a little more expensive than handgun ammo. You're going to be able to buy it literally anywhere. Pretty much all the academies, everywhere's going to have it. That's why this gun gets a bad rap. It's used lawfully, but it's also used unlawfully because it's very common. Anyway, I think preppers should get one of these because it can be a great home defense. It's small enough you can still clear rooms with it, not as well as you could with a handgun, but you can still do it. So if you've got to consolidate and only buy 1 or 2 guns, this would be one I'd have on the list. They also come with a lot of add-ons. If you're the kind of person who wants a 4-stock on it where you can have the downward grip, or you're a person who wants the, I don't know, night vision, or you want a longer barrel or something like that, you can get them and make them. I mean, you can literally build your own. And because of that, you can customize it. The kids often ask me what kind of gun they should get if they're going to get a new one. And my question is always, what kind of gun do you need? Anyway, what are you going to use it for? So a 223 like this would be a good solid prepper gun. And if a prepper is going to buy 1 or 2 guns, and you're going to save up for it, and you're going to invest in it, well, I prefer the M4, but the AR platform is a good solid one to have. And just because the gun gets a bad rap in the press doesn't mean it's a bad gun. And people should do their research with it. But like every other firearm, if you're going to buy one, do so legally. Make sure that you learn how to use it. If you don't know how to shoot, get some training. But make sure you know what you're doing with it and practice with it ahead of time, so if you ever have to use it, you're in good shape. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on these 3 things. Just answering a few comments on why I think the way I do. Agree or disagree, feel free to comment, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I hope to see you next time. Thank you.